Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to continue with the F80 M3 brake upgrade on my 340i. Like I said before, I've been tracking the car on the stock brakes with just upgraded pads for about 2 years, but we're going to take it to the next level and upgrade to the actual F80 and F82, M3 and M4 brake setup. Now these cars actually use the same calipers, so on the rear we have a 345 millimeter rotor with a 2-piston caliper, but we're going to upgrade to the larger 370 millimeter rotors from an F80 chassis car. So we'll use the same calipers and just space them out to fit the larger rotors. That'll give us better cooling and better performance, as well as just it looks a lot better behind the wheels. Now, shameless plug, I do sell these adapters, so if you guys are interested in doing a similar upgrade, send me an email, kern417yt@gmail.com, and I can send you all the information you need so that I can ship you out a set. Keep in mind, I do usually have them in stock, but there might be a little bit of a delay, but I ship out across the world, so anywhere you will need them, send me an email and I can hook you up. But that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start on this DIY, show you guys how it installs, and yeah, hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do, of course, is remove your wheels. So you should have something kind of like this, where it's just your brakes. And we're going to go ahead and set it up to install these adapters. So this is actually going to space out and rotate the caliper slightly so that it can fit the larger 370 millimeter F80 rotors. So first thing is, just like on the front, we're going to remove this set screw on the rear just to make sure that we're not going to have a bad day. Thankfully, my set screws in the rear come off much easier than the ones in the front, so no problem there. Now next we're going to remove the brake pads. Again, this is just like the front. So we've got these pins we need to knock out. So use your punch tool and a hammer and knock it out. And then it should just pull out from the rear. So I'll use my pliers, stick it back here, get a grip on it, and pull it out. And watch out because the spring might go flying. There we go. Then we can slide out the brake pads. Remember, the new rotors are going to be much thicker than these, so you kind of want to pull them back as you slide them out to retract the piston on the brakes. So I'm kind of pushing them against each other, and that just opens it up. So now, you know, it's loose because they can slide out really easily. And then next we're going to remove the caliper itself. And so there are 2 bolts on the back. Let's see, one right here, and then another one a little bit lower down. Hard to see from here, but basically the exact same bolt. There it goes, just a little bit lower. So get an 18 millimeter box wrench and we will remove both of those. And just make sure you have like a box or something right here to catch the caliper and hold it up so it's not hanging by the brake line after you remove it. There we go. All right, then we can pull off the rotor. And here's where the real fun starts. So like I said, this is our adapter, has a lot of pieces to it, but basically it's a very tight fit. So it's going to require removing some material from the knuckle and the caliper in order for it to clear. So we're going to go ahead and start with trimming back this splash shield, just so we can have more visibility to what we're working with and add some clearance for the bigger rotor as well. So what I'm going to do is, there's this little space right here, so I'm just going to cut that straight down. And then the same thing up here, there's a little space, I'm going to cut that straight up. So basically how this is going to look is we're going to mount this up like this. All right, so the bracket's going to kind of fit under here. The two shorter bolts go through these holes where the caliper originally was, like this. Let's see if you can see it a little better here. There you go. So yeah, the bracket will be kind of in this orientation, and then you'll have these two bolts going through the original holes, and then you'll retain it with nuts. So as you slide this through, basically you'll put a nut here and tighten that down, and that's what will hold it in place. Now the problem is we also need to mount up the caliper to these new holes, and this top one is fine. You're going to use one of the longer bolts, put it through here, and it's going to come with this spacer. So that'll hold this in place. But you see, like, you're going to need to trim this back a little bit. So we're going to have to trim back a little more here. Basically trim it flush with the parking brake shoe around this diameter. And that'll get the clearance we need for this screw to fit properly. Now at the bottom, it's even worse, because when you push this screw through, it hits the knuckle. So at this point, you're actually going to need to basically trim it. Let's see, I'll turn off the flash so you can see it better. We're basically going to trim this corner and clear this out so that the screw can fit through. And then we also have a spacer, but it has a cut on one side. So it gives you a little more room to kind of slide this on and get the screw through, but you still need to grind some material off. So we're going to use an angle grinder to remove this, basically most of this area below the original mounting point for the caliper, and that will allow this screw to come through. All right, and so this is our progress so far, and you can see I've got the bolt fitted, and the way that I did this is I basically took this out, and now it can kind of swing. So just put this middle bolt in, install this with the bushing, with the cut part closer to the bracket, and then you swing this over, get it aligned under there, and then the hole in the top will line up when you've cut it away enough. So with all this removed, you can kind of see how much I had to cut. Nothing crazy. And I mean, again, this is my first time using an angle grinder. It looks a lot more intimidating than it is. If I can do this on my first try, you guys can do it too. So the main thing is just making sure you get the right angle. And so what I do, I get under the car and come up like this. So I'm running it and just like cutting away while it's grinding and making this notch until it creates this radius that you see right here. And test fit. If it needs more clearance, add more. Test fit until you get enough to fit it like that. So next thing that we're going to need to do is remove some material from the actual caliper, because this next bolt won't be able to fit right there. So once you get this mounted up, again, this is just for test fit purposes, but you're going to be mounting these nuts here and here to hold this on. But then we've got this last bolt with a spacer, and this is where the caliper is going to mount, but this is in the way. So what you're going to want to do is tighten this nut. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and tighten this nut on here. You can just hand tighten it for now, for test fit purposes. Let's get you back on. And then we're going to test fit the caliper. So if you slide this on, let's just get one of these screws started. You can kind of see right here where it's hitting. So basically you need to notch from like halfway down to like here. And we're going to notch this out the same way we did with the knuckle, so that we have clearance for this nut to fit properly. There we go, we get some focus. So yeah, this nut is basically hitting, so we need to get this hole over a little bit more so it lines up with this bolt. And when we notch this out, that'll give us the room we need to get that over. So what I'm going to do, I mean, the easiest way probably for most people, especially if you have new calipers, is just to do this on the bench. So clamp it down in some vices and notch this out with your angle grinder. All right, and this is kind of a preview of my setup, how I did this. So I basically put what would normally go on this bottom bolt, screwed it through the top bolt, and then, you know, screwed in like this and just kind of let the caliper hang. And then you can use your angle grinder to remove material in this middle part, because that's what's going to be hitting this bolt when you try to install it. The easiest way to do it, I found, is basically just to come in from the top and just slowly grind away in this kind of pattern. You know, imagine it's running brrrr and grinding away. And yeah, again, I know it's not pretty, but my first go at it, and just make a little notch like that. So we'll go ahead and unscrew it. There is one more point. I also had to remove some material from right here. This little flat that you see in the middle, that was not flat. It came to kind of like a point. And so I just ground this flat, and that gives a little more room for the caliper to fit, because, you know, the bolt's going to come through here, and then the caliper needs to fit kind of in this space. So if you need to do that as well, again, just use your grinder, a couple passes right here. Should take you maybe 5 minutes to grind that flat and get rid of that little notch that's in your way. And here you can see it in the assembled position. Now again, don't do this yet. I mean, this is just kind of test fitting it to make sure everything clears. I still need to take this back off to put the rotor on first, and then I'll assemble the caliper in the final position. And it actually looks like I need to take off a little bit more material to add a little bit of clearance, because it's touching just a little bit. But this is kind of how you do it. Test fit, see if you need to remove some more material. You can mark it with a little Sharpie or whatever, and then put it back in that upper position to grind more material off until you get it clear. All right, now the actual fun part. So let's go ahead and do the reassembly. So we've got the brackets tightened down on this top bolt and this middle bolt with the nuts. We've got these bolts waiting to mount the calipers. But the first thing, of course, is to install your rotors. Now, this one is very particular, again, because the set screws do not line up, so you can't reuse the stock set screw, and it really helps if you have wheel studs. If you don't, just use your wheel bolts to line this up and put in like 2 of the bolts to hold it in place, so that way it'll stay centered while you install everything. But it slides on just like that, and yeah, you can see the set screws are in like a completely different position. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could drill a hole where the original set screw was installed and then install it that way, but I don't really think it's necessary. So we're just going to get 2 of these lug nuts on to hold the rotor in place and center it while we install the caliper. And now the caliper, so you obviously can't see what's going on there, but you're basically lining it up with those same 2 screws or the same 2 bolts that have the spacers on them. So just take your time. It's easier to look at it from the top and line up the holes and then hand thread them in. The second one seems a little bit easier to line up when you're looking at it from the bottom. And boom, look at that. Super amazing looking. Oh, I can't wait to finish this up. So last thing we need to do, especially if you have stock 18-inch wheels, is take off the ears from your brake pads. So what I do is I just clamp onto it with some pliers and twist. Oops, sorry guys. And that will get both of these off. Oh, keep bumping you, sorry. And then, you know, for these last little pieces, if there's a piece stuck in there, you can hit it with a hammer to knock it out. Mine are actually stuck in there pretty good on this one, so looks like they're just gonna be staying. And so we'll go ahead and put our brake pads back on. You can reuse the stock brake pads since we're using the same calipers, or you can install M3 brake pads, or you can install upgraded brake pads, whichever you prefer. And then we'll slide in our pin, and then yeah, reinstall the spring and your other locking pin, and then hammer the pins in place. There we go. And we are through. Now, one more thing, just kind of like the front, you will probably need a wheel spacer if you are using stock OEM F30 wheels. The problem is not the diameter. 18s fit over this just fine, but sometimes the spoke or the barrel kind of hits in this area just because of the design of our wheels. So you're going to want a spacer to create some room to the face of the caliper, so that way you're not rubbing and you have the clearance that you need. I use 12mm spacers because it looks better, but you can probably get away with even like a 5 or 10mm spacer if you want. If you have aftermarket wheels like F8X or something like that that are made for big brake kits, then it should just be plug and play. All right, so first thing is spacer. And then the wheel. Yeah, just double check everything, make sure you have clearance. I can't really turn my car since it's rear wheel drive, but you should be able to tell if there's anything hitting or, you know, too close from this point. If everything's good, then go ahead, tighten on your wheels, and you've got your F80 brake swap completed. And yeah, that's how the brakes install on your car. So after that point, you'll be able to take advantage of the larger F80 and F82, M3 and M4 rotors. Hopefully this helps you guys out. And again, keep in mind, I do sell these adapters. So if you guys are interested in upgrading your brakes, send me an email at kern417yt@gmail.com. Just put in the subject line that you're interested in the brake upgrade, and I'll send you guys all the details on how you can place an order. But yeah, for now, that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.